It hurts to be with a borderline. It's a torture, but they love her. They want to be with her. They don't want to lose her. So what they do instead, they develop an internal object in their mind, and they begin to interact with this internal object. The internal object is not hurtful, is reliable, is caring and loving, is empathic, doesn't act out, doesn't decompensate, is not dangerous, etc. It's exactly what happens to healthy partners of a borderline, let alone to narcissists. They develop a snapshot of the borderline, and they continue to interact with this snapshot, because interacting with the external object, interacting with the real life intimate partner who has borderline personality disorder, interacting with the borderline requires what we call in psychology high effort coping. So just as an attempt at self-preservation, the partners of borderlines become temporarily, transiently, situationally narcissists, in the sense that they start to interact with an internal object which represents the borderline partner rather than with the partner herself, which is what narcissists do. The borderline, of course, perceives, because she is like a seismograph, you know, the borderline is hypervigilant. She constantly monitors for possible abandonment or rejection. She catastrophizes. She overinterprets. She mislabels behaviors which are perfectly normal as abandonment and rejection. She is all over the place in this sense. So she senses the withdrawal. She grasps the silent, creeping avoidance. She realizes that her partner is beginning to shun her. She knows that what she's doing is wrong. She knows she's misbehaving. She knows she's hurting him. She knows she's introducing unmanageable chaos into their lives. She knows she's crazy making, but she just can't help it because she's dysregulated. She's sick. Borderline personality disorder is an illness. She can't help it. But she knows it is having deleterious effects on the relationship. She knows she's driving her partner away into his mind, away from her and into his mind. She realizes that he is interacting with some image of her, with some avatar of her, with some icon of her, with some representation of her, which is not her. So she feels abandoned. She feels rejected. And when borderlines feel abandoned and rejected, they decompensate. Their defenses crumble. They become secondary psychopaths, and they act out viciously, aggressively, or they do immoral things, or they act recklessly. This is the dynamic, the unhealthy dynamic between the borderline and each and every one of her partners. Aware of this inevitable dynamic and craving to keep her partner in her life, in other words, in a desperate attempt, forlorn and doomed attempt to ensure object constancy, the borderline needs to freeze the partner, to avoid any change and any dynamic in the partner. She needs the partner to become an ancient Egyptian mummy, exactly like the narcissist, but for different reasons. The narcissist freezes his partner because he needs to because he is emotionally invested in the introject, and he doesn't want the partner to diverge from the introject because it challenges the introject. The borderline wants to freeze her partner, wants him to not evolve, not grow up, not travel, not talk to other people, not have friends, never ever to pay attention to anyone but her, and to pay attention to her 60 minutes a day, 24/7, 366 or 380 if possible. She is all over him. She suffocates him. She smothers him because she doesn't want him to go away even to the next room. It's exactly like a baby with mother. You know, when mother leaves a room, baby starts to cry. That's the borderline. She tries to freeze the partner. But this desperate attempt to deny the partner agency, to reduce the partner to an inert object, to objectify the partner. This strategy of rendering the partner some kind of toy or plaything in a way, or at best a source of permanent presence and the core attention that she needs. This provokes the partner. People don't want to be treated this way. They don't want to be deactivated. They don't want to end up being objects. They don't want to lose agency and control over their lives. They don't want to be subjected to emotional blackmail. They don't want to walk on eggshells. They don't want to conflict and adversity in their lives on a permanent basis. They feel engulfed. They feel, so this generates in the partner engulfment anxiety. As you see, being in a couple with a borderline, even if you're perfectly healthy, generates in you, as the partner of the borderline, generates in you a narcissistic dynamic. You start to interact with internal objects rather than an external objects, and generates in you a borderline dynamic, because you develop exactly like the borderline. You develop an engulfment anxiety, and you start to avoid the borderline. You avoid her because she's painful and unpredictable and dangerous. So you avoid her by developing an internal object which represents her in your mind and interacting with this object. But then you begin to avoid her altogether, even sometimes internally, because she demands of you to cease living, to not live anymore. She demands of you to become inanimate. She wants you to become a fixture in her mind and in her life. So borderlines react very badly if you spend too much time with someone else, or if you cater to some business needs, or if you don't pay them attention for too long, or if you don't respond instantly to any communication that they initiate, never mind when and where. Because you don't have agency. You are not your own person. You're an external object, but she owns you. The borderline owns you. You are her property in many ways. You are an external regulator. It's like a transformer in electricity. You're an external regulator. Your job is to regulate her moods and her emotions and make her feel good. That's your job. That's your raison d'etre. That's your reason to exist. This is what you need to do in order to justify your being. And so partners gradually draw away. They're pushed away. And they react with narcissistic defenses, like, for example, introjection and introject constancy. And they react with borderline defenses, like, for example, decompensation, avoidant behaviors, approach-avoidance. And they develop gradually anxiety, both about the external object and about the internal object, introject anxiety. So they don't know what to do, the partners of borderlines. They absolutely don't know what to do. They also have their own needs for object constancy. In other words, they also need to maintain a constant object out there and a constant introject corresponding to this object in here. By avoiding the external object, even healthy partners of borderlines are undermining their own object constancy. They're driven clinically to become personality disordered. And this whole dynamic, which is pretty inexorable, provokes the borderline's abandonment anxiety. And so the approach avoidance cycle, where the borderline approaches you, you respond favorably, intimacy is created, the borderline is terrified of abandonment and rejection by you, but at the same time, she feels that she's taken over by you, that she's subsumed and consumed by you. She has engulfment anxiety. So she withdraws, and then she feels abandoned and anxious about it, and she approaches. All this is reciprocated and mirrored in the dynamics of the partner.